my second period was just like, they were like bouncing off the walls. So that leads me to my second takeaway, which is that when I give instructions for stations, especially to my 9th grade classes, especially now that they're a little bit more comfortable in this classroom, which is absolutely the goal, but the comfort level comes with a certain degree of, I'm at home, I'm gonna kick back a little bit. So you have to like find a nice balance there. That was my, the more you know moment for the day. Good morning and welcome back to the Caffeinated Classroom. If you don't know me, my name is Marie. I'm a high school English teacher in San Diego, California. And it's Monday. I am having another rare moment of being alone in my classroom because it is the beginning of the 4th quarter of our year. We are in the home slide. I don't know what I'm saying, but it's like we're getting towards the end. This is the first of 2 weeks before spring break. We have the latest spring break ever. Everyone on Instagram is like, yeah, it's spring break, oh my gosh. The best part of spring break is relaxing and books and spring break. And I'm like, cool. That's really nice. Cool, but that's okay. Anyways, I have some things to plan. If you saw my vlog last week, I was madly grading at the end of the week because I was gone 2 days last week. I'm gonna be gone 1 day this week, and I'm gonna be gone 2 days next week. All for different reasons. 2 of them are for like administrative release school stuff, and then 1 is for a personal thing, which I'll like tell you about later. Like going to a cool workshop thing. So I have my work cut out for me. I have a general idea. I know what I'm going to be teaching. Now I need to figure out exactly how I'm going to teach it over the next couple of weeks. I will tell you more about it like later on today and tomorrow. But basically my 9th graders are starting a unit on To Kill a Mockingbird, and I am, if you know me at all, and if you were watching my vlogs about Lord of the Flies with my sophomores last quarter, over like the last few weeks, I like to do things differently. So we're gonna try something experimental. We are going to do more of a film study than a full novel study for To Kill a Mockingbird. Cue the angry English teacher emails and comments telling me that I am desecrating the classics, but that's okay. I'm doing something a little bit different because I want students to actually read. I need to figure out at least what today looks like. We're gonna be doing some stations to introduce the social and historical context of To Kill a Mockingbird in my 9th grade classes. And then in my, well actually first in my 10th grade class, we're going to be looking at identifying bias and like looking at hashtag real news and hashtag fake news. So I'm gonna figure out exactly, I have articles that I pulled from Newsella. They have text amendment questions that go with them. I need to figure out exactly what the purposeful reading is going to be, like what the active reading is going to be that I'm having my students do, so that we can talk about bias, where bias comes from, and how to identify it. Because we're gonna be doing a research unit over the next couple of weeks. A lot of things that I've planned, like I said, loosely, but like now I know the what, now I need to figure out exactly the how and the day-to-day. So I'll run you guys through later on this afternoon. I'll let you know how these 2 things, the stations and the bias, identifying bias, annotating things go, and then we'll see where I go from there. All right, I'll check in with you guys in a bit. My friends. So good news is that I actually did get done all the planning I needed to get done right before school started. I put together 2 lessons with 6 stations in each. I mean, I didn't do it all from scratch. Like there were some Teachers Pay Teachers products in these stations, but I did put together like slideshows to be all the information, and there's stuff like all over the room. Here, I'll kind of show you. You can see the wreckage. That is what it looks like after stations in here. Some days that side looks pretty good. It's really not too bad actually. Most of the things out on tables, like these books that are over here, are going to be needed because, so I made, in both of my classes, I made 6 stations each. My sophomores were looking at identifying bias in the media and just in general, but specifically looking at like, we're going into some research and that sort of stuff. So looking for identifying and then understanding bias. And then in my freshmen, we're starting To Kill a Mockingbird, like I said earlier. So we're looking at like the social and historical context of like civil rights, the Jim Crow South, just the 1930s, blah, 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 blah. So two things. My big takeaways of the day are this. Number one, it is officially spring and my kids have spring fever and they are cuckoo. Like just, I mean, it happens to everybody, right? It's just a human thing that when it gets warm outside, we change, right? It's biological. But also like for these kiddos who are hormonal and just in that, you know, physical prime of their life, they were wacky today. And not every class, well, each class was a little bit wacky, but like to its own degree. My second period, so I teach for second and third period and then fourth is my prep. And my second period was just like, they were like bouncing off the walls. So that leads me to my second takeaway, which is that when I give instructions for stations, especially to my 9th grade classes, especially now that they're a little bit more comfortable in this classroom, which is absolutely the goal, but the comfort level comes with a certain degree of, I'm at home, I'm gonna kick back a little bit. So you have to like find a nice balance there, or I need to find a nice balance there. They needed more very guided instruction, such as one of the stations that I had for like introducing Jim Crow laws, right? They had a short, like a 4-minute video to watch from YouTube that was like talking about Jim Crow, the Jim Crow era, and then a little sheet of information from the product that I got from Teachers Pay Teachers, which I'll tell you about later in this vlog. And they would play the video and not listen to it and be screwing around, being all squirrely, being 14 and 15. And then they would start copying down information from the sheet of information word for word onto their notes sheet. And I was like, in what world have I ever told you to just copy things down word for word? Like that's not notes, that's just you copying the English language from typed to handwritten. So I had to stop them and say, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to watch the video, then I want you to read the information, and then I want you to pick up your pencil. Synthesize the information that you got from the video and from the information sheet, and then write your notes from your understanding of what Jim Crow laws were. So that took a little bit of like redirection and guiding. And then I was like, note to self, more specific, not just written information and instructions, but like spoken, make sure everybody gets it, demonstrate it. I think I got a little too big for my britches here and forgot that kids are kids and I needed to give them a little bit more guidance. So that was my, the more you know moment for the day. Okay, so I'm gonna get to work and I will check in with you guys tomorrow. Peace out. Hello, my friends. So you know how I just said I was gonna check in with you later on Monday? It's not even Tuesday. It is Wednesday afternoon. It has been 2 full days since I last vlogged, but it was because this week has it was a runaway train. Like it just started and like gone into the distance. And because both of my classes had 6 stations each, we ended up doing 3 on Monday and then 3 yesterday, Tuesday, and then able to debrief them in both of my classes at the end of class yesterday. So overall, I will say that they went very, very well. I will reflect more on my sophomore stations probably later this week because we are talking about basically just like consider the source, right? Like how to know if a source is credible and how to rate the credibility of that source depending on a bunch of different factors. So I'm gonna talk to you more about that, I think, in my next vlog later this week. But right now, I wanted to talk about To Kill a Mockingbird because I'm doing a lot of different sorts of things that a lot of teachers aren't necessarily doing, because I just like to experiment and try different things. And I'm definitely taking like ideas from so many different places and kind of like making them work with my style of teaching, with my understanding of these topics, and just in a way that I think will really resonate with my students. So that said, let's go sit down, you, me, and civil rights, Jim Crow, and the South in the 1930s. Here we go. Okay. So I have for you guys, and I'm just sitting on the floor. I don't know if you can see behind me. I now have a floor seating option within my flexible seating in my classroom, and I will totally talk about that at another time too. But let's stick to the task at hand, which is going to be civil rights, Jim Crow laws, and the 1930s South. So basically, each of my students got this packet, which is what I'm going to go through with you. There were 6 stations. 5 of the 6 stations came from a product that I purchased on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it was from Fairways and Chalkboards. And it's her pre-reading unit, or like pre-reading activities for To Kill a Mockingbird, and they are phenomenal, and they work really, really, really well in stations. So basically what I did is I took these activities that I bought from Fairways and Chalkboards, and I adapted them and wrote out instructions within a Google slide presentation. And then I had Chromebooks all around my room, like 2 per station. So I had like 12 Chromebooks around the room. And then students in their seating groups, I just kind of, you know, clumped them into 6 groups. And I had them rotate around and just keep open like for each group as they came around the instruction slides. And I did that rather than making physical task cards, because I find that if somebody is absent, which happens, you know, I mean, it's flu season, so kids are out a whole bunch. This way, they can just have the packet and go home and complete it. The packet just went through like the stations kind of in order. And basically, I have all of my copies down here, but I'll just show you guys. So I made a little like cover sheet, because I'm noticing that if I just start with work, sometimes students get a little confused, and it just says, as you complete today's stations, record your answers in this packet. And I went front to back because I was trying to save paper. But the first sheet is civil rights vocabulary, and it's a really nice sheet, and it's all like nice and thematic, and it all kind of like goes together with similar fonts, and that's what I love about so many of these products from Teachers Pay Teachers. Could I have made this stuff? Absolutely. Did this save me a bunch of time? And what was the opportunity cost worth the price of the product? Yeah, it absolutely was, because they got a great manipulative, or like a great graphic organizer to go along with some excellent information that I was able to find. So second station is about Jim Crow laws, and actually the product from Fairways and Chalkboards comes with some like already pre-filled in versions of these notes. And so I gave them like this information sheet that came from there. And I found a pretty good, it was like a 4-minute video from a PBS documentary about race in America, about Jim Crow, the rise and fall of Jim Crow. And what I had them do is watch the video, read through the information, talk about it, talk about the different areas that are required on their notes sheet to synthesize together, and then write down their understandings within the actual notes sheet. So that put a little bit more of the work on them. Was this 100% successful with every single student? No. Kids were definitely just copying down exactly what it said there. But because it's stations, I was able to move around the room and really like work the party. And for the most part, keep an eye on 2 stations where we had similar activities. This one and then another one that I'll tell you about. And guide students to perform activities that would like get them to like deeper learning, rather than just, sorry, there's a kiddo going by. Hello. Oh, they don't need me. Rather than just copying down information. Station 1, vocabulary. Station 2, Jim Crow laws. Station 3 was a pre-reading questionnaire that came out of Fairways and Chalkboards, and it's all these different questions guiding students through looking at the cover of To Kill a Mockingbird and kind of making some like pre-reading inferences about the story itself. And I provided 2 different covers. I have the one that's like the purple with the little illustration on it that like is the kind of more classic cover, and then I also have the one of the black and white picture of the little girl that's supposed to be Scout, you know, with like the bowl cut. And so I had them look at both, and then from there fill out their questionnaire. So I liked that a lot. Station number 4 was just like the Jim Crow station in that they had a video that was on the Chromebooks, and they had a sheet of information. This was about racial segregation. And so it talks about separate but equal, and it talks about essentially Jim Crow, but like how it distilled down. We were really focusing on education. So like the video that I showed them was about Brown versus the Board of Education and integrating schools. And so they had to watch that, read through the information that I provided for them on the information sheet, and then synthesize, like process their information, synthesize it, put it onto their notes sheet. That was station 4. Station 5 was an article that I have used before with my sophomores, and I actually just used it with my students. It's from New Zealand, and it is entitled, it's an opinion piece, and it's entitled, "It's Time to Diversify and Reconstruct Our School's Reading Lists." And it's right on par with their Lexile. The level is 1220 Lexile. There's only 985 words, so it really wasn't too bad. I mean, it takes a bunch of pages because it's large font, but it wasn't too bad. The thing I love about New Zealand is the same thing that I love about Common Lit, which each reading that you get from these sites come with like a 4-question text-dependent quiz. And so I had students like work together on that, and those questions have to do with comprehension, they have to do with analysis, with understanding the big topics, and I love that because then that gives me some data to go by, and it gives me like a baseline, because this was on the first day of the quarter. And so I had them, the instructions on their slide for this station. Oh no, my light's turned off. Come back. I'm still here. Does this happen to you guys where if you're still in your classroom for too long, the fluorescence will just shut off? Because that happens to me. Anyways, I had my kiddos annotate as they read for just like big ideas. It was kind of vague. I normally give a better purpose for reading and purpose for annotating, but I wanted them to really just take in. If you're not familiar with this article, I highly suggest you go take a look at it, especially if you are a secondary English language arts. Really good article. Kids read. They go, wow, white savior plots. Wow, I've never heard of that before. And I go, I know you haven't heard of that before because no one's talking about it in front of you. And now I am. So anyways, and then station 6 is back to fairways and chalkboards, to her product. It's an activity in there called the bigger picture. And basically students have this little notes sheet that has some instructions on it, and it has 4 boxes, one for each of the 4 photos that is provided. And these photos are from Jim Crow era. They're from a time of desegregation, of desegregating schools. They are peaceful protests as well, having to do with civil rights and race relations, and excuse me. And it basically asks students to infer what's going on, like what is the context of each of these photos, and take notes on that. And so they worked together, and it's just so fascinating to see, even at, so I teach like a 9th grade general education, English language arts, to see the huge disparity in levels of understanding of something like this, like photographs, how to like read a photograph. Some kiddos just get it. They've got that maturity chip that is kind of like clicked in, and they understand a bigger world sense of these sorts of things through photographs, through literature, through different sorts of stuff. And some just don't, like they're just not there yet. They're like, I don't know, it's a little girl, she's got men around. And I'm like, yes, but like what is significant about the way this little girl is surrounded? And yeah, it's just if you get to do stuff like this, like if you can work this sort of stuff into your classroom, it makes such a richer conversation. So then we sat in a big circle and we did our first like community circle, like restorative justice type circle. And I led them through just like introducing themselves, and I explained to them why we're gonna be getting into circles 2 or 3 times a week, and just how we're gonna use this academically and socially and all of that kind of stuff. And if you missed that vlog, I will link that one in the iCards, where I went to the training and then kind of like debriefed and like decompressed all of my thoughts on restorative practices and restorative justice. So we talked about, I asked, like after we kind of did a little like ice breaking, hi, my name is, here's how I think my year's gonna go, or my quarter's gonna go. We talked about, I asked them the question, what is one new thing that you learned about this social and historical context, you know, this time period that we're talking about? Or what is something that you already kind of knew about, but that became more clear? And oh my gosh, I don't know if it has always been this way, and my gut tells me it has always been this way, and I just never asked the right questions. My students don't have a very good understanding, and by very good, I mean very detailed understanding of the need for a civil rights movement in the 1960s. They get segregation kind of, but they did not, I mean, this is not every single student, but like overwhelmingly generally, most of them who are true 9th graders, because I do have some 10th and 11th graders who are like retaking, but those who are true 9th graders had a very low understanding of this context. And so talking about it, they were like, I had no idea. And I was like, okay, you've shown me where I have been lacking in years before. So I also did 2 really cool activities today. And I will make sure that this part is on Instagram because I want to make sure that I can not make this a bajillion minute video, but I can also show you guys some of the really cool stuff I've found. So if you head over, if this is like a unit that you're teaching, or if you're teaching night and you need to look at the Holocaust, or like really there's so many other topics that are on facinghistoryandourselves.org. Check that out. I will link it down below, but there are 2 activities that I did with my classes that were phenomenal. And like I said, I'll go over this more on Instagram, but oh, hello again. Sorry about that. My camera just like died completely. I am home now. I'm actually making dinner, but I just wanted to like not leave you guys hanging. Basically the 2 activities I was talking about, they're on my Instagram stories. So if you head there and go to, like, if you're not seeing this vlog right when it's coming out, I'm gonna leave it in my highlights, just like more specifically what I did with these 2 activities that I got from Facing History and Ourselves from their website. They just have such an amazing collection of resources, of lesson plans, of videos and articles and art pieces. And so the 2 that I used that you can see more like on my stories what I did with them are an etching called, it's all like the lessons that I kind of like poached these from are all about identity and where it comes from, and it's having to do with race and having to do with culture and just like where a person forms their identity and how a person forms their identity. And so the one is called Untitled 4 Etchings A, and because it's a series of 4, we only look at the first one, and there are a bunch of questions that go along with it. There's a whole lesson plan that this one art piece is a part of, but I just took the art piece and I took that little piece and I made it like a really great how to read a piece of visual art, like mini lesson that I got to lead each small group of students through. It was really, the way I did it today was really cool. So you got to just kind of like watch those stories and find out. And then the other thing that we did in small groups today was another thing from Facing History and Ourselves. And it was an essay entitled Little Things Are Big. And then they've got some great questions that go along with it that I had my students use both as like informative reading questions on how to annotate the text itself, and then as discussion questions that we're going to continue with later on. So check that stuff out. But I will be back at you guys later this week talking about what's going on with my sophomores, because this is all, Mockingbird is all with my freshmen, right? But with my sophomores, we are looking at sources and evaluating sources for credibility and for like ranges of credibility. And so we've been doing a whole lot of work with that, and I'm excited to tell you guys in a more like complete for what we've done for the whole entire week in my next vlog. And until we meet again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, take a second to do so. Please leave any comments, questions in the comments down below. I will get back to you, I promise, as fast as I can. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.